One of the best pieces of advice I could give you when starting out in Muay Thai is pick a good fighter and emulate their technique. Now this might seem really simplistic, but honestly, one of the things as a coach I find when teaching a new student is that they don't have any context in what they're doing. By watching the sport and getting a better understanding of it, you'll start to understand the why as much as the how, the correct sequences of attack and defense that the top fighters use, and you'll pick up on traits that you're not even aware of, because after all, the best fighters usually have the best technique. The first fighter I can say I really looked up to when coming through was Buakaw. The reason was because Buakaw's technique was so beautiful. He was a fighter that really just sat me back and thought, wow, like if I can be anywhere near as good as Buakaw, I'll be happy. Now, if Buakaw's had 200 fights, then I think he knows what he's doing, despite what many internet trolls might say. Now, some people might say, Buakaw was a kickboxer, he wasn't the best Thai. Bear in mind, it's like 15 years ago when I first got into the sport. My instructor was giving me DVDs of Thai fighters.
Can't allow
You
anybody...
want my DVD?
No.
Do for £5.
But Buakaw, coming from Thailand and representing Muay Thai within kickboxing, he was a fantastic example. And just to see him crush other top level fighters showed me that this sport was great, that Muay Thai was strong. By aiming to be like Buakaw, it set my ceiling really high. And it's like that expression, if you shoot for the moon, even if you miss, you'll still end up in the stars. And that was kind of my approach to it. If I could just aim to be like Buakaw, if I get anywhere near it, well then I ain't doing too bad. And I think everyone can agree that his technique is some of the best. I didn't get to an elite level, but I had 70 professional fights and fought internationally, picking up some fairly prestigious titles along the way, and beating some decent names for my generation of fighter. And I partly attribute that, and especially in my quick progression, for taking my time and really trying to get a good mind to body connection with the techniques. Another fighter I massively looked up to when coming through was Yodsanklai. Yodsanklai had the best left kick in the game, and this starts to make me feel old, because both Yodsanklai and Buakaw are getting on a bit now. Yodsanklai's retired, and Buakaw's in his 40s fighting in BKB. So times have changed since I first got into the sport.
Parole, clean punch, big shots to the body. More big shots.
But watching those guys gave me a lot of context. I used to see how Buakaw would defend with the long guard, even in kickboxing. As much as they were taught within the gym, I already had the context when my instructor was showing it me of how it's kind of applied. And I would say a lot of the good fighters that I've known throughout my time as a coach, it's the guys that love the sport and that really watch it and have fighters that they admire are the ones that seem to progress a little bit quicker. Another little tip when picking a fighter, try and go for fighters with a similar body type for yourself. For example, if you're a 5'2", 70 kilo fighter, look at the likes of Armite Zambidis or Steve Moxon, those short, stocky power punchers that had a lot of success at the time for their weight class. It's probably going to be difficult if you're short and stocky in stature to be a diesel noise and be coming out clinching fighters left, right and centre, smashing them with knees. It's a little bit of an unrealistic expectation, but that's not to say you can't pick things from that top fighter. You can copycat from different fighters, take things from them that you think work, and then maybe disregard the things that don't. I also love Raymond Deckers, and he definitely influenced some of my training style and some of the things I like to do on the pads when hitting them and holding them, purely because I just like him as a fighter aesthetically. I like watching him compete, and therefore I wanted a little piece of that for myself. Through that experimentation, a much greater understanding of the sport, of what works, why it works, and when it doesn't work. You might go through phases where you experiment with knees and watch a lot of fighters that like to use the long knee. Maybe if you're tall like myself, that might be something that's particularly good for you. Then maybe you decide, I like kicking more, so I'm gonna watch the more femur-based fighters, guys like Namsak Noi. So there's a whole library of fighters that have competed in this sport to watch and choose from. But to begin with, I'd just pick one or two and pick something about them that you really like. When you're in your own time on a bag, or even in your own time hitting the pads, pick one specific detail of a fighter you like and admire, one that's kind of recognised for being great as well. Don't just pick Tommy from down the pub because he's got a banging over and right and you've seen him drop a man outside the chip shop. That ain't going to get you very far in the sport. Look at some of the good fighters, like for example now I can name Tawanchai and Nongo, who are current fighters in one championship that I just think are brilliant, and that if anyone tries to emulate them, They can't go too far wrong. If you've got a favourite fighter and you've done this already, let me know in the comments. I've gone through so many over the years, I could never name them all. But it's definitely helped add a little bit more flavour to my training, as well as a bit more motivation. Trying to do something that I've seen an excellent fighter do, and see if I can even get halfway closer doing it. As always, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you later.